So you work so hard to get somebody to schedule an intro call. You show up on Instagram, you network, you're tinkering with your Psychology Today profile, blogging for SEO, you name it. You want to know with like a pretty high degree of certainty that once you get that call on your calendar, there's a pretty good chance that that person is going to become a client. If you do not feel that way currently, if you're like, I'm not sure if they're even going to show up or what to say, or half the time they end up not working with me, or they wanted to use somebody with their insurance, listen to today's episode. I'm going to walk you through exactly what to say and do so you can increase the number of people who are going from scheduling an intro call to actually becoming a private pay therapy client of yours. We're going to walk through the process step by step. Now, the first thing I want you to do is really shift your mindset around this. And I want you to start thinking of intro calls as a sales call, right? This is your opportunity to confirm that the person is a good fit for you, meaning that they are within your clinical expertise and somebody that you enjoy working with. And you are going to listen very carefully to what they are looking for in a therapist. And assuming that they are your ideal client, right, you are going to help them to see why you are the best therapist for them. You are going to help them to see why your approach is what they need, why your approach is what they want, so they can move forward. It is really that simple, but the goal is to help to convey more confidence that you are the therapist to help them. So let's walk through step by step what that actually looks like. First, you need to allow your clients or your potential clients to self-schedule an intro call. The other day, I was over at a friend's house. She was looking for a new therapist. We were going through and kind of looking at different people, and there were so many therapists who did not have an intro call scheduler set up. And she was emailing like a dozen therapists who she thought was a good fit, but was expecting nobody was really going to get back to her, or not many would. And so she literally reached out to a dozen therapists to schedule an intro call. The first person, out of those 12 people, one of them had an intro call scheduler set up. So this is like on a Saturday. She had an intro call scheduled with that person on Monday. So that was like a winner right there. And then she did intro calls with like the first 3 people who got back to her, but didn't even answer any of the other like 8 or 9 people, because by that point she was overwhelmed and was just like, whoever had the intro call scheduler got back to me first is like who I'm going to consider, but I can't actually consider a dozen people. And so if you have an intro call scheduler set up, if you can help people to act when they are in that like active stage of seeking a therapist, you are going to be so ahead of the game. If you are somebody who's marketing yourself on Instagram and people are not just like scrolling Psych Today and looking for a therapist, but actively deciding whether or not to work with you, if you take out the guesswork of what do I say? Will she get back to me? Do I even want to do therapy for real? What if I change my mind? Et cetera, you will just get so many more clients. It will be so much simpler. Please, I promise you, I've seen it in my personal life. I've seen it happen for so many therapists. Getting an intro call scheduler is a game changer. I personally have mine set up in my electronic health record, Jane. And so it's really nice because the clients are then already set up in my platform moving forward if they decide and we decide that we want to work together. But you can also use a tool like Calendly if you prefer. But you want a tool that is going to integrate with your calendar and allow people to schedule an intro call on the spot when they are considering whether or not to work with you. Now, once they schedule the intro call, your scheduling platform should send them a confirmation email. This confirmation email should include information about the state you're licensed in. It should remind them about your fees and that you're an out-of-network provider, and ask them to cancel the appointment if that does not work for them. I'm going to go ahead and read you my confirmation email in case you want to use it as inspiration, or to make sure that yours has everything that you need. And again, this is all automated in my electronic health record, Jane. So when they schedule the intro call, this is the email that they get sent automatically. Hi, client's name. Your appointment on blank date at blank time with Kelly McKenna has been confirmed. I will call you at this number at the time of your appointment. Please note that I am only licensed to see clients who live in New York, New Jersey, or Florida. I do not accept any insurances in network, but if you have out-of-network benefits you wish to use, I will happily provide a monthly super bill or submit claims on your behalf. You can read more about that process here, and then I link the rates and FAQ page on my website and say, look forward to talking with you soon. Thanks, Kelly. P.S. If this no longer works for you, no hard feelings. I just ask that you please cancel the appointment so that I can open up the time on my calendar. Feel free to shoot me an email at blank email address. Really, really simple, really straightforward, but it allows people to know what to expect if they did not go to your rates and FAQ page first. They are clear about the must-have information. What states are you licensed to work in? You don't take insurance. They can find the information on your rates. And you'll notice the tone in which I said this was not apologetic. I did not say, I didn't go into it with the assumption that like people aren't going to be able to pay $275 per session. I stated it very neutrally, and people can decide whether or not it works for them. Now, clients also get sent reminder emails and text messages in Jane as well to actually increase the chances that they show up for the appointment, right? So you definitely want to set that up so that way people know that the appointment is happening, they remember all of that. Now, if let's say that they get the confirmation, they get the reminder, and you call them and they don't answer, that's okay. I want you to send them a text message right away. Lots of people ignore random phone calls, right? Maybe they're in the middle of work. Maybe their phone's on Do Not Disturb and they don't see it right away. That's okay. Just send a text and say like, hey, this is Kelly. I was calling for our intro call. Is now still a good time? I would say like 80% of the time, people are like, oh yeah, sorry, I totally forgot, calling you back now, right? And the other 20%, maybe they forgot, maybe they ghosted, maybe it's not a good time. That's okay. If you are actively looking for clients, please go ahead and follow up with these people if they do not like return your text message or do the intro call right away. You can email them. You can see if they want to reschedule, that kind of thing. That is totally okay. Ideally, most people are actually attending the intro calls they schedule because we had that scheduler in place, because we sent them the confirmation email, the reminders, all of that. But some no-shows are still totally normal. You will get them from time to time, and that is okay. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. You just want to make sure that it's not like a consistent pattern happening all the time. Okay, so let's say that they answer the phone and they say hello, and you are starting your intro call. You want to start off with very brief small talk just to sort of get people comfortable and building a little bit of rapport. So I usually say something like, hi, this is Kelly. Is now still a good time for our intro call? They say yes. I say, oh, great. How long have you been looking for a therapist? And then, they tell me, oh, I just started or, whatever. And then I usually ask, oh, like, that's great. How did you hear about me? Usually that answer has been Instagram for me. And I say something like, oh, I love that. When clients find me on Instagram, it's usually the best fit. That's so cool. Or something like that, right? So I'm just sort of like engaging in a little bit of small talk, but keeping it very relevant still to the purpose of our conversation. And it's a very natural conversational way to ask, how did you hear about me? You want to write that information down. That is great information to know because it tells you what of your marketing is working so you can do more of that, right? If you are getting told time and time again that people are coming from Instagram, you are going to want to go all in on Instagram. If somebody tells you, Sarah referred you, you want to go thank Sarah for the referral, right? It is so helpful to know where clients are coming from. Then I like to set the frame for the call. So I usually say something like, great, we're going to go ahead and jump into things. Usually these calls last about 15 minutes. I'm going to ask you some questions to learn more about you and why you're seeking therapy. Then I'll tell you a bit about myself and you'll have the chance to ask any questions as well. And if it seems like we're a good fit and you'd like to move forward, we'll discuss fees, availability, logistics, all that good stuff. Does that sound like a good plan to you? They say yes, right? So I've kind of set the frame. I've gotten their consent that like that sounds good. They understand this is not going to be like a free therapy session. They understand the purpose of the call. Maybe some anxiety or jitters about, I don't know what to say or do is like taken away. And I am now taking the lead and structuring the call for them. So the next thing you want to do is learn why they're seeking therapy to make sure that they are a good fit for your practice. So here are some questions that I ask during this stage of the call. What's been going on that made you decide to get therapy right now? I'll let them talk. I'll ask, have you been in therapy before? They'll say yes or no. I'll ask what worked in the past and what hasn't. What did you like or dislike about that experience? And that's really helpful, both if they were in therapy before or if they've just been trying to like manage this situation on their own with like self-help or tools or whatever. You want to understand what's worked well for them and what hasn't worked well for them or what they disliked, because that will tell you whether or not you're going to be a good fit as a therapist. And also, it helps you to like set the frame of why you will be the best therapist for them, which I'll talk about more in a second. You really, really, really want to use all of your active listening skills, all of your reflective listening skills in this stage of the call when they are talking about why they're seeking therapy. You want to really show them that you understand what they're going through, that you understand what they're talking about, and that you are qualified to help them with this situation. It is not out of your depth. Now, if they finish answering these questions and at this point you're like, ooh, this person is not a good fit. They either need a higher level of care, they're outside of your expertise, they're just a population you don't enjoy working with. Now is the time to share it. Do not continue with the rest of the intro call. Let them know here, right? You do not need to continue to build rapport, continue to build hope, and then let them know later. So I usually say something like, based off what you shared, I actually don't think that I'm the best therapist to help you with XYZ thing. I really specialize in helping anxious millennial women, not working on, childhood trauma. But I know a few excellent therapists who really specialize in trauma therapy and do really, really great work there. Would you like some referrals? Right. And so I'm able to make it very neutral. It's not about them, it's about me, my expertise as a therapist. I don't want to make them wrong or feel like they're too crazy or that, they're like too troubled to help. And then if they say yes, they want referrals, you have two options. So if people come to mind instantly, you can go ahead and share the names of those referrals on the call. But if not, I usually say something like, great, let me check. I know a few great therapists who specialize in trauma. Let me see who's taking new clients, and I will email you some options by the end of the week. Right. And so this is an amazing resource and thing to do. This is huge. This is a very big way that I got clients when I was first starting in private practice, was actually referring people to other therapists, right? So if I had an intro call with somebody who was not a good fit, I was always taking the time to find them 2 or 3 referrals. And I would reach out to those therapists on Instagram and say like, hey, I just had an intro call with somebody in New York who wants to work on trauma. Not my specialty. Are you accepting new clients? They're good with private pay. And then I would send them that client's initials and say like, great, I just gave them your information. I hope that they reach out. Right? That does so much for building trust and relationships with other therapists. And you are really doing right by the potential client who reached out to you to begin with, by helping provide a warm handoff, by helping them to find a therapist who would genuinely be a good fit. Now, let's say that you finish asking them about what they're looking for in a therapist and you decide that you are a good fit to work with them. Now you want to go ahead and explain a little bit more about your approach and why you are the best fit to help them. Now, your spiel for who you are as a therapist should relate to what they just told you. You want to focus on the things that they told you in the intro call that they want to work on in therapy. You want to focus on how your approach connects to what they liked, or the opposite, like what they disliked of previous experiences in therapy. And you really want to use this section to convey that you specialize in working with people exactly like them, right? That is what you want to lean into. If you have 4 other niches that do not apply to this client situation, do not discuss them in this section of the call. It is not relevant. You want to tell them how you are best equipped to help them. So I will give you a little bit of a spiel that I would say on an intro call. So I would say, great. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself and my approach as a therapist. So I got my master's of social work from Florida State University, and I am a licensed therapist in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. I own my own private practice, and I really specialize in working with millennial women in their 20s and 30s who are dealing with anxiety. And of course, as we talked about today, that comes with a lot of other stuff too, right? So anxiety can show up as work-related stress. It can affect our relationships. It can make it really hard for us to set boundaries with like friends and bosses. It also really impacts a lot of my clients' body image as well. My approach as a therapist is really engaging. So I'm never going to be the therapist who just like nods and listens and lets you rant. I promise I will give you tons of feedback. I will lovingly challenge you and really help you to work through your anxiety and learn to think about things differently. Does that sound like what you are looking for? great. Do you have any questions about my approach or how I work as a therapist? Right? So I'm really able to reflect back to them. I'm not using like, oh, I'm trained in CBT. This is what this looks like. This is how it helps you. I'm literally reflecting back what I heard that person say, right? So if they are saying, they felt like previous therapists, it was just a vent session, I would explain why it's not. If they say previous therapists gave them tons of worksheets and stuff, I would say worksheets aren't really my thing because they're genuinely not. If you're a therapist who loves worksheets, do your worksheets and tell this person that that's your style and maybe they're not a good fit. But I would say like I'm not really into worksheets. I'm much more into, talking about your thoughts and your feelings and how we can change those behaviors. If they felt like, previously they would just kind of like vent and not really get anywhere, I might say, I'm really big on giving homework after session. But for me, that's not really worksheets. It might be something specific. Like, I want you to talk to your partner about XYZ thing and we'll talk about how it goes next week, or try setting this boundary with your mom, or I want you to start working on these affirmations and like, saying them naked in front of the mirror, whatever, right? Like giving examples related to what your client has or potential client has sort of brought up as the issue that they are hoping to resolve in therapy. So that is how we are kind of giving your spiel about who you are as a therapist. And then I would go ahead and say straight up that it sounds like we are a good fit. So I would say something like, great, now that I shared a bit about myself, it definitely sounds like we are a good fit. And I think that it would be wonderful for us to move forward and work together. Did you have any questions about fees or out-of-network benefits or how any of that works? Usually people will say, well, I'd say it's about half and half of either people are like, yes, can you just remind me? I know I read your website, but it'd be helpful if you could talk me through it. Or they're like, no, I've seen a therapist out of network before and I read about your fees on your website already. All good. Right. But hopefully like 99% of the time by this stage, people should already know your fee because it should be listed clearly on your website. You link to it in your confirmation email. You link to it in your reminder. They are aware of the fee. It is not like news that you are springing to them on the call. So my spiel would look something like this. So as you read on my website, my fees are $275 per session, and I don't accept any insurance in network. I am an out-of-network provider, which means that if you have out-of-network benefits, you are welcome to use those. And you can use those in one of two ways. First, I'm happy to provide a super bill for you on the first of each month, and you can go ahead and send that to your insurance company for reimbursement. Or if you'd like, I'm happy to submit claims to your insurance company on your behalf. I work with a company called Mentaya, and after each session, they can go ahead and actually submit the claim to your insurance company for you and follow up with it all the way through. Do you know if you have out-of-network benefits? Then if they say yes, I say great. So, that'll be simple enough. If they say no, or I'm not sure, I would say I have an out-of-network benefits calculator on my website. You're welcome to check it out. But I do always recommend calling your insurance company and just getting clear information from them on exactly what your benefits are and how that works. And then I ask, and then I would also say, and if you have a health savings account or a flexible spending account, you're welcome to pay with that card as well. So pretty straightforward. And then I ask, and you're located in X state, correct? Right? I'm making sure that they are living in the state that I'm licensed in. And then I say like, great, do you have any questions? Or would you like to move forward with scheduling an appointment? Or do you have any other intro calls you're doing first? And then I would ask, do you have any other questions about fees or logistics there? And then usually people say no, that's pretty clear. But again, I'm really not getting overly involved with the benefits. I'm not like trying to sell them on out of network or why it's so helpful. My goal at this point is that they are already aware of how it works. They've already taken like that information and decided for themselves whether or not it's affordable. And hopefully they've decided yes if they decided to pursue this call with me, right? And now my trust is that I have done my job on the intro call. I have shown them why it will be worth it for them to see a more expensive therapist and that we are ready to move forward. And so at this point in the call, I say something like, would you like to go ahead and move forward with scheduling an appointment? Or do you have other intro calls that you're doing first? And I would say there, again, it's maybe like 70% of the time they're ready to schedule the appointment and 30% of the time they have other intro calls they're doing first. I think for me, because most of my clients are coming from Instagram, people are pretty sold on working with me and they're not really doing a ton of intro calls with other therapists. But if you do get an inquiry from like Psychology Today or another referral platform like that, you probably will hear people say more often that they're doing a few other intro calls and want to get back to you. That is totally fine. Now, if they say that they're ready to move forward, schedule their first session on that call. Get it on the calendar, ideally in the next week. That is super, super helpful for increasing conversions versus saying like, great, yes, I will email you my scheduling platform or I'll email you some dates or whatever. You're going to lose people that way. You want to schedule them while they're taking action and then let them know what they need to do next with like, I'm going to send you some forms, intake paperwork, that kind of thing, typical stuff you see at a doctor's office. It should take 15 or 20 minutes to fill out. Please make sure to do that, the Monday before our appointment. Great, I will see you then, right? That simple. If they say they're doing a few other intro calls, I would ask them when you can go ahead and follow up. So let's say that you're doing this intro call on a Monday. I might say like, okay, great, definitely take your time, talk with some other therapists. It's really important that you find somebody who's a good fit. Does it work if I check in with you on Friday to see if you want to go ahead and move forward with scheduling a session? Simple as that, right? Maybe they tell you, yes, that sounds great, or I actually only have one more intro call today, so I can let you know before then, or one of the therapists I reached out to isn't available until next Monday, so I probably won't know till next week, whatever, right? But you know when you are following up with them. And that's it. That is your intro call. If you follow this framework, you are going to get so many more clients. Will everybody become a client who schedules an intro call with you? No, of course not, right? But the majority will. I would say like 60 to 80% is what's most common for therapists who are private pay and private practice when they are following this framework correctly. And when you set up your intro call scheduler, if you haven't done so already, you are going to get way more calls to begin with because you are not having to go back and forth via email and losing people. This is really important stuff. It is a skill very worth mastering because it is so helpful with actually turning your leads, turning the people who are reaching out and asking you to be their therapist into actual clients. Do not skip this step. Do not sleep on this skill. Practice it with your partner, with a friend, with another therapist. Do the role plays. I know that takes you back to grad school and can feel so cringy, but it is so, so, so worth it, and really feeling confident in your ability to do intro calls and track them, right? See how you do, see what your conversion rate actually is. Know this number and work to improve it over time. And if you see that it's not going as well as you'd like, that tells you something, right? That means that you need to do more practice. Maybe you need to add more reminders into your confirmation sequence. Maybe you need to make sure that your rate is easier to find, like that kind of thing. But you really want to pay attention and see what's going well. What are you hearing from people? How often are people converting and moving forward? What are the reasons why people aren't working with you? That kind of thing. All right. Thank you, my friends, and happy intro calling.